Okay, let's dive into this fascinating stack of sources you've brought us today. We're going deep into a corner of, well, early 20th century California, right?
Okay.
Musical life, theatrical life.
Hmm. And a rather exclusive corner at that.
Definitely exclusive. So our mission, really, is to explore this intriguing world of the Bohemian Grove plays, specifically a historical musical drama called St. Patrick at Tara,
Yeah.
and try to understand what these unique productions, what they tell us about art, culture, society,
Yeah.
based on these documents we have.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating, I think, is how these different pieces fit together. You've got concert reviews, critiques of vaudeville, and then this peek behind the curtain at a powerful kind of secretive club's theater stuff.
Right.
And they all connect to paint this really rich picture of the artistic landscape back then. So we're looking not just at what they performed, but, why it mattered.
And what it reveals about the bigger cultural conversations happening at the time.
Mhm.
Things about art, access,
Yeah.
education. Okay, so before we jump right into St. Patrick's story, let's set the stage a bit. Many of you listening might have heard whispers maybe of the Bohemian Club and this infamous Grove.
It gets talked about.
But what exactly are these Grove plays? Who's actually putting them on?
Well, the sources show this unique tradition they have. Each year, there's a sire who's basically in charge of the script, the libretto.
A sire. Okay.
Yeah, and then a musical sire who does the music. And this main sire, they dictate the whole theme, the final shape of it, even if other people actually write bits of dialogue or lyrics.
So a very controlled, curated process.
That's highly curated, yeah. And for a very, very exclusive audience. So, for example, St. Patrick at Tara, the writer was H. Moore Stevens, and the music was by Wallace Sabin.
Got it. And these weren't just like one-and-done deals, were they? Did these plays have a sort of ongoing significance for the club?
Oh, absolutely. They weren't just one-offs. St. Patrick at Tara, for instance, they actually staged it twice for the members. Once in 1909 and then again way later in 1934.
Wow.
And another play, The Atonement of Pan from 1912, that was performed first for the club members, and then they did another performance for their wives and women friends.
Interesting. So that pattern, it suggests a pretty significant investment in these works, doesn't it? Like they were more than just entertainment.
Definitely. They were treated as really integral events, and that deep investment seems to go beyond just putting on a show.
How so?
Well, remember that 1906 production, The Owl in Care? Our sources mention it was actually this elaborate cremation ceremony.
Ah, right, because of the San Francisco earthquake. It took precedence over another play they had planned.
Exactly. The triumph of Bohemia got sidelined. It really highlights that these events, yeah, they were theatrical, but they often served a deeper purpose for the club, sometimes even ritualistic.
So they evolved with the club's needs and, well, what was happening in the world around them.
That's a good way to put it. They were central to the club's identity, their traditions.
Okay, so beyond the ritual, the spectacle, our sources give us this, well, almost provocative look at how these plays were sometimes viewed. There's one writer analyzing them who offers a pretty pointed critique.
Oh, yeah, quite sharp. Describing many of them as, let me find the exact words, a flat, pointless version of life.
Flat and pointless.
Yeah.
Ouch. And didn't they wonder if the authors, these powerful men writing them, were maybe hiding what they knew? Or maybe didn't know much at all?
Right. The writer questions if they were deliberately hiding all the things they know, or, and this is the kicker, if the masters of the world don't actually know anything about the world.
That's quite something. It really raises questions about what kind of art this group wanted or maybe was capable of producing.
It does. The critique points to this vast assurance combined with the blandness of a dominant narrative, a lack of insight, basically. Nothing really personal.
Blandness of a dominant narrative. So even things that seemed apolitical, like showing Lincoln as just a good guy without touching slavery,
Yeah.
that reinforced this blandness.
That's what the critic argues, yes. It smoothed over complexity, reinforced a kind of safe, established view.
This idea of art lacking depth or challenge,
Yeah.
does that connect with other things you found? You mentioned a contrast earlier.
Absolutely. It's really stark when you compare it to, say, the example of prisoners performing the Caine Mutiny.
Right. Tell us about that again.
Well, here you have this intense drama about power, responsibility, rebellion, staged by inmates in a private prison. And apparently, their genuine delight when their performance got some recognition, it just throws the Bohemian Club stuff into sharp relief.
So it highlights the difference between maybe entertainment created for an elite.
And art that comes directly from raw human experience, often in really unexpected, unrecorded places. That kind of engaged art finds its meaning in the toughest conditions, not necessarily in, fancy productions.
That's a powerful contrast. Okay, so with that backdrop exclusive, sometimes criticized plays, let's zoom in on St. Patrick at Tara.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about this specific one? It sounds like it had a surprisingly, solid foundation.
It really did. It wasn't just made up. It drew directly from authentic historical documents about St. Patrick, things like his confession and his letter against Caroticus.
So, real primary sources.
Yeah, and the play apparently followed Professor Bury's scholarly work at the time quite closely. Things about Patrick's birthplace, the timeline of his life, what happened at Tara, the clashes with the Druids.
Professor Bury.
Yeah.
Like a noted historian.
Yes, a prominent historian of the period. Yeah. And the librettist, H. Morse Stevens, who was a historian himself actually at Berkeley, he explicitly mentioned how much he relied on these historical and academic sources.
That is a pretty academic approach for, let's be blunt, a gathering often seen as a sort of high-powered boys' club.
Yeah.
So what's the actual story? The core conflict?
Okay, so it opens dramatically Easter Sunday, 432 A.D., Hill of Tara. The High King of Ireland has called together all the provincial kings, Leinster, Munster, Connaught, Ulster, Oriel.
Right. The big players.
Exactly. To decide what to do about St. Patrick, he's arrived, stirring things up. And the immediate flashpoint, the central conflict, is Patrick lighting the Paschal fire, the Easter fire, on the eve of Beltane.
Beltane, as that's the Celtic festival.
Yeah, an ancient Celtic fire festival.
Yeah.
And lighting this fire was a massive act of defiance. There was an old law, punishable by death, saying only the Druids could light the first fire on that night.
Okay. So classic confrontation. Old ways versus new ways, old power versus new power. How did they stage this? Musically, visually, on that unique outdoor redwood stage?
Well, the music by Wallace Sabin was pretty complex. The plan included a prelude, a big march of the Irish kings with a chorus, separate songs for different regions like Connaught and Ulster, a processional where they chanted Pange Lingua, that's a famous Latin hymn,
right,
an intermezzo, even a drinking song for the revelers. And the technical side, the lighting by Edward Duffy and stage effects by George Lyne, they got rave reviews, called them peculiar skill, positive genius.
So they really transformed the Grove into ancient Ireland.
Apparently so. And the sources credit Matthew, the stage director, with really giving the script dramatic punch, making sure the spectacle worked.
Okay, give us a feel for the drama itself. Any key moments or character bits that stand out?
Yeah, there were some vivid touches. The play had distinct singing entrances for the different kings groups, like the Lusty Fellows from Munster.
Lusty Fellows.
Right. And there's even a Brehon that's like an ancient Irish judge from Connaught, suggesting a human sacrifice, a nod to, quote, Ireland's ancient faith.
Oh.
But the real emotional weight comes from Patrick. He tells his story being captured by Irish pirates as a boy, 6 years of slavery in Connaught.
Right, his backstory.
And how he heard the voices of the little unborn children of Falkland calling him back to Ireland to preach. So when he defends lighting that fire, it's framed as this big challenge. Drive the demons forth and break the Druid power.
So quite the dramatic justification. How did it all resolve? Was there a sort of aha moment for the characters or the audience?
There was a really powerful scene, yeah. It involves the apparition of Cuchulainn.
The legendary Irish hero.
The very one. Patrick, while his followers chant Veni Creator, basically commands Cuchulainn to appear, all ghostly gray. Now, some kings are terrified, the Druids trying to look unimpressed. Apparently the king of Connaught just grins.
Skeptics in the ranks.
Right. But then there's this one chieftain, he'd lost his wife and children, and he just stares into Patrick's face, full of grief. And Patrick turns to him, offers comfort, hope, says something like, look on the cross, and thou shalt see thy loved ones once again. It's this moment connecting the big historical sweep of conversion to really deep personal loss and the promise of faith.
It does sound quite affecting. And even the costumes you mentioned had their own little drama. Must have been tough finding details for 5th century Ireland.
It was. The designer, Porter Garnett, faced what he called a discouraging paucity of data. Just not much info to go on.
So he had to improvise.
Pretty much. It rendered it imperative, as he put it, to exercise fancy, use his imagination. They did find some sources, mentions of garments like the trews or braca, the coda, the borad, sort of trousers, tunics, caps, and ancient laws about who could wear what color.
Okay.
But how they actually distributed the colors among the king's groups, that followed Professor Stevens's directions, but Garnett himself admitted it was more creative license than strict historical fact. It just shows how much invention went into staging this ancient world.
Right. So we have this picture of St. Patrick at Tara, lavish, based on research, but also using creative fancy, performed for this elite group. How did this exclusive world, though, fit into the wider artistic conversation happening out there on the Pacific Coast around the same time? What did looking at all this together tell us about music and theater back then, more broadly?
Well, it definitely throws up that whole question of accessibility versus exclusivity and the purpose of art. Because while the Bohemian Club is doing these elaborate members-only things,
Yeah.
you have publications like the Pacific Coast Musical Review actively campaigning for cheaper concert tickets for the general public.
Oh, interesting. What were they arguing?
They were saying that paying, $1,000 or $2,000 for a single artist for less than 2 hours work was just too much. A heavy tax, they called it, especially hitting students and teachers hard.
Sounds familiar.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
They were pushing for reasonable admission prices, like 50-cent gallery seats. The whole point was that art shouldn't be prohibitive to anyone. You could get a first-class comic opera or a symphony ticket for 50 cents, they argued. So why not these solo artists?
So yeah, that tension between high-priced, maybe prestige art and making it accessible, it's not new at all.
Not remotely new. And it connects directly to other debates happening then, like the push for music education in schools.
Ah, you mentioned Superintendent Ronco Vieri in 1910.
That's him. He was arguing forcefully that music was a necessary educational factor for high schoolers. He believed proper instruction, according to the highest standards and by the most competent forces, was crucial.
And his goal was?
He thought it would increase concert attendance eventually, but also just elevate general educational standards. It was part of this broader societal concern for cultural enrichment, making sure it wasn't just for the wealthy few.
And they were even talking about licensing teachers to weed out quack teachers.
They were discussing it, yeah. Though the musical review paper seemed a bit skeptical, suggesting better training was the real answer, not just licenses.
Okay. And it wasn't just about access or education, right? There were debates about the nature of performance itself, like that discussion about dancers, Maud Allen.
Oh, yeah. The Pacific Coast Musical Review had strong opinions there. They were debating whether dancers like her actually interpret music or if they just provide a visible demonstration of rhythm.
And the review's take was?
Pretty blunt. They said she did not interpret music, calling the whole idea of interpreting music through motion ridiculous.
Huh. Okay, so strong views.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It shows these ongoing arguments about interpretation versus just presentation and, the cultural context of a performance. They even questioned foreign singers coming to America and performing in languages the audience didn't understand.
Really? What was the point there?
They argued that while American students hoping for international careers should learn languages, foreign artists performing in America should prioritize making themselves understood by the local audience. Master English if you want to perform here, essentially.
Interesting. So concerns about quality, integrity, audience connection, all bubbling up.
Exactly. All pointing to this era's focus on what makes art good, how artists should train, and how art should function in society.
And bringing it back to that comparison you made earlier, the prisoners performing the Cane Mutiny. Thinking about all these other debates, that example really does put the critique of the Grove plays, that flatness critique, into a different light, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You have the Grove plays lavish, elite spectacles, and then you have this raw, deeply felt performance by prisoners, something probably few people ever saw or recorded. It powerfully suggests that the real impact, the truth of drama, can pop up anywhere.
Yeah.
It underscores that maybe art's ultimate value isn't just about the budget or the social status of who's watching or performing,
but its ability to actually connect. To challenge, reflect something genuinely human.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In a way that resonates regardless of the setting.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for us today? We've gone from the exclusive Redwood stage of the Bohemian Grove to concert hall pricing debates to arguments about music education.
Yeah.
You've really given us this incredible window into how art and society were intertwined over a century ago.
Well, if you step back and look at the whole picture, it's a reminder, isn't it, that these conversations we have today about art's purpose, who gets access to it, what makes it good, they're not new, they're perennial. You had, on one hand, a Swiss millionaire funding the Flonzeli Quartet for 8 years under ideal conditions, just so they could perfect their art.
Right, the height of patronage.
Exactly. And on the other hand, you had Superintendent Roncovieri pushing for music in public schools to lift everyone up. The underlying drive, in different ways, seems to be this belief in art's power to elevate, to enrich life.
So the question just keeps coming back for each generation.
Yeah. Whose art gets supported, whose art gets seen and heard, and who is it really for?
Okay, here's a final thought then, something provocative for you listening.
Yeah.
Given everything we've talked about, high art versus entertainment, access, the purpose of performance, that blandness critique, what forms do today's cultural deep dives take, both for the powerful, maybe behind closed doors, and for the public? And thinking about those prisoners, what are the truly vital, maybe unseen performances happening right now that might actually be shaping our understanding of the world more than we realize?